The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The human postponer. They were the master of one phrase. I'll circle back on that. But 3 months later, you were the one doing all their work and wondering how big that circle is. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can take the hiring load off your plate by automating the hiring busy work from the initial job post to scheduling interviews. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
This is the Weekend Check-In from the Modern Taoist with Kip Man. Join the absolutely free Modern Taoist community on Patreon at patreon.com/themoderntaoist. And now, Kip Man.
Hello, and welcome to another Weekend Check-In episode of The Modern Taoist. My name is Kip Man, and I am your guide through the world of making Taoism a part of your life, if you so choose. This week on the Patreon page, which is patreon.com/themoderntaoist, we've chatted a lot about various not small concepts, but mistakes that are made when someone begins practicing Taoism. Forcing yourself to be a Taoist is not Taoist. See, forcing is forcing regardless of what you're attempting to do. But there's another thing that has come up a couple of times in the last 4 or 5 months with various people I've talked to, whether it's in person, conversations, or whether it's online or private guidance or whatever. And when I see this, it is one of the things that I immediately know that I have to start work with this person from a different perspective than with others. And it's not an insult. It's not a judgment. It's just I'm always looking for a place to start. And there is a sentence that arrives in difficult moments of some people's lives. And some people just do this naturally. Some people do it because they've been conditioned to do it. And then others people do it unfortunately, as an excuse. And that is when we begin to speak in absolutes. I will never be able to do this. This always happens to me. It never works out. Nothing ever changes. These sentences feel to them like it is an honest description of their life. They feel like it is a hard truth, and that is just the way it is. Almost everyone that says some absolute says it with this kind of grim authority that you can't talk them out of it. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes it is so ingrained when they say, I will never be able to blank. I always do blank. Sometimes that is so ingrained and they get so defensive of the statement that you cannot show them the door. The problem with saying these things and speaking in absolutes is they are almost never correct. And the damage that they do to you is not in the moment that they're spoken, but then it's in your decisions that happen, in the way it quietly sort of reorganizes your relationship to possibility. Foreclosing options that are still open, closing doors that you don't even know exist, and producing exactly the outcome that you thought was inevitable. It's when we speak in absolutes, many times it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because we didn't allow other options in. Taoism has always been, if you read Taoist texts from thousands of years ago, always been suspicious of fixed statements. Not because truth doesn't exist, but actual reality, the way the Tao moves through circumstance and time, is never as fixed as the defensive sentences we use to describe circumstance. There is a saying that a man can never step into the same river twice because it's always a different man and always a different river. The person who says, "I will never," is describing a future that simply has not happened yet, as though it is a settled argument. And in doing so, they make that argument considerably more likely to come true. And the funny thing is most people can hear this speaking in absolutes when someone else does it to them. When a friend who says, "I always mess up relationships," in a casual conversation after a bad breakup, or breakup 2 or breakup 5, you can see from the outside that that statement is doing something more than describing a pattern. It's installing a pattern. It's becoming the explanation that gets reached before the next relationship has even started. It's a pre-written story. It's harder to see it when we do it ourselves. Because from the inside, these absolute statements feel like our story. It feels like we are making an observation. It feels like finally we're saying a true thing rather than an optimistic thing. It feels like we're just simply describing the truth of our lives, saying the mature thing. But that's a trap, because what is actually happening is something far more specific. Because a real experience, a real loss, or a real failure, or a real pattern has repeated itself, is now being taken and converted from something that, now pay attention here, happened, past tense, into something that always happens, present tense, and will always happen, future tense. So you're taking 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever patterns, and you're forcing those patterns into 3 different time spaces. The specific is being made universal. The past is being applied to the future, and the future has no desire to accept that. And that conversion happens so automatically that people think, "I knew it. I knew this was going to happen. It always happens to me." "I tried and it didn't work" becomes "I always fail." "I don't have any money now" becomes "I will never be able to afford." "One person left" becomes "everyone always leaves." The sentence arrives with the story fully formed. The Taoist view of this is straightforward, and it is probably one of the most uncomfortable conversations that a Taoist teacher will have when a student or a learner or a curious person says these absolute things. The Tao Te Ching's 11th chapter describes the usefulness of emptiness. We've talked about this. An empty space inside the wheel's hub, an empty cup, an empty room. It is the emptiness that makes the thing useful. When you speak in absolutes, you are filling the future. You have removed possibility. You've filled the space that should be left open. It is the person reaching for certainty in a situation that is genuinely uncertain, and then converting that uncertainty into a fixed situation or a fixed wall, which feels like the truth, but in reality is a blockage. The cup is full before you can pour anything into it. When a person says, I will never, they're not just making a prediction. They're doing something active and consequential. They are withdrawing investment from the future because it feels too risky to believe in. They are protecting themselves from pain by not trying again. Absolute is a defense mechanism pretending because of pattern installation, pretending to be a sense of realism. And it works sometimes in a narrow sense. The person who has decided they will never find a relationship that lasts is protected from disappointment. The person who has decided that always self-sabotaging is protected from the vulnerability of trying. That certainty is armor against hope. It is armor against possibility. Because the possibility, yes, could be something that you don't like. But you're also removing the option of having something happen that you do like. And that armor never comes off. When the armor never comes off, it stops protecting and starts imposing. Because the armor becomes heavy and the person inside of it cannot move freely. They can't reach without the armor getting in the way. And over time, the nevers and the always, and I'm just not the kind of person who, all of that accumulates into something that feels like an assessment of your life. When in reality, it's, like I said earlier, it's a self-fulfilling wind-up. Now, the correction to this is not always relentless positivity. It's not what I'm suggesting. It is not replacing I will never with I definitely will, because that is also an absolute. You can't swap I will always fail with I will always succeed. You can't just do that. That kind of forced reframe doesn't work because it's not honest. The hardest thing about Taoist thought and Taoist lifestyle, as we've said over and over and over, is self-honesty. So the correction on this is to be more precise. Take the absolute and returning it to what it actually is, a specific experience in a specific context at a specific point in time. And rather than letting that stand as a universal truth, realize that there are still other possibilities. I will never becomes this. I will never becomes this is genuinely hard. And I just never found a way through it before. Everyone always leaves can become, I've had important relationships in my life that have ended and it's been painful. I always self-sabotage becomes, sometimes there's moments when I get in my own way. I don't want to minimize what has happened, but we cannot let what has happened determine what will happen. That little tiny shift reopens the space that the absolute statement closed. There is no promise that things will be different. But we want to refuse to promise that they won't be. Leave the future available for what the future might actually bring, rather than what the past has decided to predict. So this weekend, notice the absolutes. They run constantly. Just the ones that arrive with the most authority are the ones that I want you to pay attention to. The ones that feel most like you feel like you're just telling the truth. But maybe you're filling the future. Those are the ones that do the most work. And don't try to replace it with forced optimism. Replace it with simple, honest, Taoist, present observations. The Tao does not speak in absolutes. It moves, it changes, it responds to what is actually present today, not to what was decided in advance. A life that speaks in absolutes is a life that has, in specific places, stopped moving, stopped being responsive, decided in advance that the next thing will be a certain way before the next thing has even had a chance to arrive and be what it actually is. You don't have to believe everything will work out. You should stop deciding in advance that it won't. That's the whole of it. And if this one landed for you, share it with someone that needs to hear it. Follow the show so you don't miss the full Tuesday episodes of The Modern Taoist. If you're interested in private guidance, there are some spaces available for you. They're on the website at daoananda.org. That's DAO.AN. Sorry, DAO. No, DAOANANDA.org. Don't put a dot in the middle of that. And if you'd like to join us over on Patreon, we have different conversations all the time that pop up. Sometimes 2 or 3 people are in it, sometimes none, sometimes 10. We'd love to see you over there. It's patreon.com/TheModernTaoist. It's free. And until next time, thanks for being here on this Weekend Check-In.
Thanks for joining this Weekend Check-In from The Modern Taoist with Kip Man. Like, follow, and subscribe on this platform for new episodes every Tuesday. And join the free Patreon community at patreon.com/TheModernTaoist or visit us online at daoananda.com.